Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna talk about the social linguistics and as well as just like the stuff that happened today and the things that I was interested in. Yeah, the recent have been interesting. The first of all, yeah, let's gonna jump right on the social linguistics. And I know that actually there's one book about social linguistics by Trudgill that I've been reading for I don't know like a half a month. No, half a year since I bought. Well, then I just found a really interesting, intriguing chapter and the notation or notion of a Trudgill. Then there's one really trading or a lingua franca language, which is Swahili. You know the which is a language used for papacies, trading papacies and the people, European people, the immigrated there and then migrate there, and from there and like going over the world and crossing the continent. The actually the Swahili, the firstly it annotates or it just that denotes. The book denotes that Swahili is used as a lingua franca in East Africa. Plus, inland in Tanzania, it's not widely spoken natively. Compared to the coastal Swahili, this inland lingua franca variety demonstrates some features of simplification, since it's spoken as a second language and it's subject to reduction as it is used in a more restricted set of the circumstances than on the coast. In Swahili, inland, no, I mean just like inland Swahili and the coastal Swahili, this comparison is really intriguing. Um, yeah, based on this information and just annotated the information that I, denoted on the book, Swahili used on the east coast is just like pure native language among the people who use Swahili as a native speaker, not native language. However, the more it goes west and where it goes inland and the north side and the south side, and that less the purity of the language the purity of the language lessen or declines. That's what inland Swahili has a lot of distinct from the pure I mean just coastal Swahili on the grammatical structure and the lexical level and just the pronunciation variety, pronunciation level. And actually this process or this distinction from between this coastal Swahili and inland Swahili and the process that inland Swahili changes and has been changing and over the years or over the time, which is derived from the coastal Swahili, is called pigeonization. The pigeonization that actually you also know the creolization. Creolization is an after established pigeonization, just like pigeon languages. So I'm gonna talk about a little bit the pigeonization. Then during the language pigeons establishes pigeons into the I don't know just one of a variety of the pure language or the main dominant language. There are And actually, there are three. There are three components during the process. The first of all, redaction. The second of all, simplification. The third of all, admixture. Then, interestingly speaking, the redaction will be repaired like after establishing the language, which means and which carry out the creolization. However, simplification and mixture will remain even after carrying out the creolization. Yeah. Then yeah. Although I expounded like the words like creolization after the and as well just like the what process the shifting the pigeonization into the creolization. I'm gonna explain a little bit about these three components in detail. The redaction is like the reduction of the language in social situations. The parts of the language are missing in like vocabulary, grammatical structure, and stylistic devices. The redaction is like the erased or just like the decline, not declined, but just cut the redundant components for non-native speakers of the language, but the people who use the dominant language for business, for trading, and for specific purposes, for part of like their life, not but not all of their life. So, but not all of their aspects in their life. Then let's just imagine. I want you to just imagine just like a native speaker of a certain language. The people who use the language as a native language, they use the language on all aspect of their life. However, whereas the people who use the language, certain language, and as I said, as a lingua franca, they usually use the language on the part of their life. Like, for example, they use the language for only the business purposes. They usually narrow or squeeze their language vocabulary into the business word, the business vocabulary they have to use. But they don't learn like the rest of the vocabulary. They don't have to learn, such as the politics and the normal conversation, I don't know, just culture, religions, like these words. They don't have to learn them. So that's why, the vocabulary, indeed necessary, inevitably they narrowed their vocabularies of the language depending on their purposes, That actually this is how redaction works on the language. I'm gonna move into the simplification. The simplification refers to absence of irregular verbs, the reduction in the number of the noun changes, which is especially for genders, gender nouns, and the avoidance of certain complex syntactic structure. This is exclusively. No, this is extremely similar to redaction that I said, but is slightly different from like the redaction. As I said, the absence of irregular verbs, the reduction in the number of noun changes, and the avoidance of a certain complex syntactic structure. As you can infer, the literal this meaning the definition, the simplification is like the definition or the process of this phenomenon is to simplify the language, like simplify the language and more than like the languages they have, or the native speak of the language using it as a native language, which has the more complex structure and system. You know, I mean, like every language is really complex, convoluted, has like a lot of convoluted system, the grammatical structure that we don't manage if we were non-native speaker of language. Even though we are native language of the language, Yeah, sometimes the case that happens among us, Yeah. Then, um, if we use the language as a lingua franca, then we have to narrow the squeeze language vocabulary, the language range or realm, into the like specific purposes that we're focusing on or concentrating on. As I said, the business, only politics, only, really public, the official treatment and official writings, just like the writings, just speaking, and as well depending on we need the language on a speaking section, or just on writing section. Yeah. The third of all, the admixture. Um, this is like the really like actually this really like takes an after like borrowing, which is the term in the social linguistics. Well, admixture, of course, in every language that has been affected by the certain or near the next language on a geographical level, and has affected to the nearest language, or to the same root language. So over the time, like the more time it has passed, and the more time it has passed, the more every language has been affected, and as well, just like it has affected the other languages. This is how the language establishes over the time. Okay, then before going to the next things that I want to talk on the social linguist, and I needed to explain a preposition. Preposition is the first stage of its development. So, as I said, pigeonization is a really important process to develop the language, but especially at the first stage of its development, it's called preposition. Then the language shifts over pigeonization. Even after that, they call like the creolization. Yeah. And furthermore, I needed to explain the resulting pigeon differs from the pigeonized form of the language, which vary from time to time and from speaker to speaker. The talk pigeon is probably the most widely spoken pigeon derived from English, and spoken by another native speaker. The language we have, when compared to the original pigeon, and expanded vocabulary, a wider range of syntactic possibility, and an increased stylistic repertoire. During the process of the shifting pigeon into the Creole, the reduction will be repaired. However, the simplification and the mixture will remain on creolization. This is what I said. This is what I mentioned a moment ago. Yeah, the creolization is a little bit complex, more complex than we thought or we're thinking it. Because, yeah, by and large, the creolization means just like to crystallize the Pidgin language into the established one. Just because the Pidgin language establishes as a solid language doesn't mean they are allowed to use in a widely spoken country in a wider countries, and that doesn't mean they creolized the language. Okay, creolization has another definition, another like other manner in order to be called creolization. That is, the creolization is that the Pidgin language, the generally or in general, the first generation speaks the variety of the language which is called Pidgin. Then they're married and they born, when actually a woman born, where woman usually gives birth to a son or just like son a daughter, and like the second generation speaking as inheriting from their parents, speak their Pidgin language from their as speak their language. Second generation speak their Pidgin language as inheriting from their parents. The language the second generation usually speak would be called creolization, Creole language, and also this process is called creolization. And then over time, the second, and third, and fourth, and fifth generation inherit the language they have been using as a Creole, as just a variety of the pure language or pure dominant language. What I mean, yeah, the whole process is gonna be called creolization. So you shouldn't be misunderstanding the definition of Creole and the Pidgin. Okay, let's wrap up. The little bit the form or just like the convoluted conversation or speak, just like the topic. I'm gonna divert. I'm gonna divert into the stuff that happened today. Actually, I listened to Momoe Clover, which is the Japanese idol, Japanese woman girls idol. The first part who usually sing and dances like they're in her hurriedly or intensively. I know the group name and as well just their existence, but I haven't listened their song eagerly or nearly or fervently. Then I listen to their songs or just like the YouTube on the YouTube. Didn't it impresses my mind and it makes me move in my heart. I was really impressed with their attitude towards the song and attitude towards their job, and I kind say. Nowadays, the so-called idol, girls idol, usually normal sing and they usually like that. They devilishly like advertise their looks like an outlook and just appearance. Only that. So what? What else? They don't have like that. However, like when it comes to Momo Clover, they can dance and sing and really hard and then like really enjoyable from their bottom or from the bottom of their heart. This attitude makes me feel impressed and moving my heart, which was really wonderful and beautiful. Yeah. So if you haven't watched or listened to Momo Robot song on YouTube's videos, then you should. I highly recommend you watch it. Yeah, then you would feel like you're also heartwarming and moving in the heart to make you, it'll make you like move the heart. That's why I just want you to watch it. So. Yeah, and recently on Twitter, like, and it's in fashion a little bit to record my voice, which reading aloud the script on the website, which is held the international English Japanese institution or kind of like the stuff and 国際英語発音検定 in Japanese. I don't know how to say it in English though. Yeah. I also recorded two script and I recorded and then I posted on Twitter, but no one responded, no one reacted to the post or the voices or just my pronunciation that I posted on Twitter. So that's why, as the first time I wasn't supposed to like to give a favor for the two persons from the medical, cause I like the American English though, like to check and point out my pronunciation and whether my pronunciation is good or not. So I just beg for advices from them, but they haven't still like replied to me. So I'm gonna see how it's going and how it goes, and we'll see that. So well, actually, well, I'm speaking in 22 minutes. It's gonna be shorter than I thought at the time, the first time. Well, from now on, at least, last but not least, I needed to work out Model 2 or, substantially today. Well, I'm gonna